Joining us today on the Round Ball Australia podcast is Macarthur FC midfielder as well as Socceroos midfielder Anthony Caceres. Anthony, thanks for joining us on the pod today.
Thanks for having me.
I guess we'll start off with how have you settled to life, here at Macarthur?
It's been seamless so far, actually. Firstly, it's very close to home, which is great, and obviously it's a great bunch of boys, a lot of familiar faces that I've known from the past, from different teams, and the boss obviously I'm familiar with. We played together at the Mariners, and so I'm very excited to join the group. There's a lot ahead of us this year, being part of different competitions like the ACL2, which really excites me, and so the quicker we get going, the better. There's a lot of enthusiasm in the group, and just looking forward to the season ahead.
You won't have to wait long to get going. Next Tuesday night you've got a round of 32 game against SD Raiders. They're doing pretty well in the League One men's competition, only 5 points off the top. How much of a challenge is that to sink your teeth into straight off the bat?
Yeah, these games are always really tough, especially at the beginning of the off-season when we haven't done too much training, we haven't had too much time to work on things tactically and physically, but we're doing everything we can to be at our best. For me personally, it's about getting fit, getting to understand the way the boss wants me to play, and the structure of the team, and so it's a really good test early on. I'm sure they're going to be up for the game with a lot of energy, and we have to match that from the start, and hopefully we can put on a professional performance and get the desired result. You
mentioned having those pre-existing relationships. What goes into wanting to sign with the club, having that relationship with Milos Stoyovski, having that relationship with Luke Bratton?
Yeah, well, talking to the boss, I was excited by the roles and responsibilities that he had highlighted, that he had planned for me. I think that will help me be at my best level and show the full extent of my attributes. And also having players like Bratz in the team, I know that we're going to link up very well. He's someone I trust completely on the field, and he understands my game to a T, so I'm very excited to link back up with him. We've had successful years together in the past, and hopefully we can replicate that here at the Bulls.
When I spoke to Milo a couple of months ago, he said about you.
Anthony's a great player. We all know him. He's had a great few seasons at Sydney FC, and we can all see his qualities. He's been rewarded by playing with the Socceroos as well. So he's a great player. We admire the player he is.
To get praise like that from a rival coach essentially, while you're still under contract with another club, that's got to mean a lot.
It does mean a lot, especially coming from someone like Milos Stoyovski, who was part of the national team, who had a very successful career abroad, as well as contributing to football in this country. Now he's doing the same as a coach. He's been successful. He's shown that he can get the most out of players, and it's for reasons like that, those kind of words obviously drive a player to want to reward the coach for the faith that he's putting in me, and so it's a pleasure to work with him, and I'm very happy to be part of the club.
You finally got that Socceroos call up after what seemed like it was years overdue, but you came in at a very crucial stage in World Cup qualifying. You're essentially thrown in the deep end, no friendly to get settled into. It's you got to qualify for the World Cup. Did you thrive on that pressure, or would you have preferred a friendly to get your feet in the environment?
No, not at all. I wanted to be thrown straight in, and thankfully I was given that opportunity. I think at my age I'm well prepared to deal with things like that. I've been a professional for a few years and developed good habits that have prepared me for this, and like you said, I've been wanting this my whole career, so I'm eternally grateful to the boss Tony Popovich for giving me the opportunity. I hope that by performing here at the Bulls I can remain part of the Socceroos for the future, and every chance I get to put on that shirt is extremely special and something I'll cherish forever.
Popovich is known as a very hard coach, a very demanding coach. How is working here at Macarthur going to help keep you in the limelight, with the World Cup around the corner?
Papa obviously demands the very best from everyone, and as you should. We are representing our country, and there's no room to slack off or to cut corners. We need to be at our best, and since everybody does want to represent your country, you need to be doing everything right. As far as preparing for that here, very excited by the prospect of being involved in the Asian Champions League. That provides me or us all with more games to prove ourselves, to show what we can do, and to get match minutes, which is most important for selection. And like I said, the roles and responsibilities that I'll have within this team will allow me to showcase my full ability and hopefully do enough so that Tony Popovich can keep me in mind.
You were part of Sydney FC's ACL2 campaign last year. Do you think that's going to help this year, having already had that experience of playing continental football in the last 12 months?
Yeah, of course. it will help in my preparation physically, but also mentally. I believe I can offer an insight into the competition to the team, and instill real belief that if we are prepared and have the desire to go as far as we can in the competition, we can be very successful. We showed it with Sydney. Unfortunately, we stumbled in the semi-final, but I believe that we could have gone further, and it was just one of those things that happened, unfortunately. So it's a real opportunity for everyone in this team. As players, you want to test yourself against different opposition, and here we have the opportunity to do that against some of the best teams in Asia.
Was it difficult to leave Sydney after spending 6.5 years there?
Of course it was, yeah. I think I look back on my career and look at my time at Sydney as probably the happiest and most successful of my career. Obviously, I plan to be as successful here at the Bulls, but there'll always be a place in my heart for Sydney. They gave me an opportunity at a time in my career where I was looking for something new. Thankfully, Steve Corica opened the doors. Ufuk Talay was involved as the assistant at the time, and they embraced me from the beginning, as did the fans and the change room. And so, yeah, Sydney is a very special club that I love, and I always hold them in my heart. Yeah.
You mentioned it being a little bit of a difficult time in your career. It was, the last of the 3 clubs that you went out on loan to, or you're contracted to Manchester City. You then signed a 2-year deal with the club. What was it about Sydney that just made you feel like it was home?
It was the culture more than anything. I walked into a change room of professionals that had been very successful, to the biggest club in the country, and the fact that they recognised that I had a lot to offer and embraced me immediately really drove me to want to be at my best and improve. And I did that over the years. I was able to add a lot to my game and be successful and develop good habits that I carry with me beyond football. And so it's a special club. I was involved in a very special period where we lifted a lot of trophies. And ultimately the friendships I've formed there, I'll cherish, and that goes well beyond football. And I still talk to a lot of the boys, and yeah, that's probably the highlight of my time there.
Does it ever get old lifting trophies?
No, no. It doesn't, and here we have the same ambitions to do that. We're part of 3 different competitions, so there's plenty of opportunity. The boys lifted the Australia Cup last year, so they're familiar with that feeling, and I'm sure that everyone's as hungry as ever to repeat that.
You mentioned Sydney being one of the biggest clubs, if not the biggest club in the country. I'm sure there's a couple of other clubs that would, say otherwise, some of whom you've come up against in derbies. You've played in the F3 derby, the Melbourne derby, the Sydney derby. Which derby do you think is actually the biggest in the country, and why? Sydney
derby, definitely. It just provides a unique atmosphere in Australian sport. I think people really turn up for that game. They make a lot of noise. The last one was a great example of that, a 3-3 chaotic game. A lot of emotion, a lot of passion. The noise inside Allianz was crazy, like nothing really that you see in this country. So it's a hell of a fixture. I think it really, provides the league with something special, and Australian sport with a unique experience. So I think we fully have to embrace fixtures like that, because that is, a highlight of our league, definitely.
I want to go back to a little bit earlier in your career. Now, I already brought up, you moved to Manchester City from the Mariners. You immediately go out on loan to Melbourne City. You end up, at 3 different clubs throughout that loan spell. It's obviously, a very tumultuous, constantly moving time in your career. But I want to focus on a slightly different aspect of it. For almost a decade in the competition regulations, you had a clause named after you because of that move.
Yeah.
What is that like, knowing that you will always go down in A-League history long after you've retired, regardless of whatever trophies you win, for the Caceres clause?
Yeah, it's one of those things that, I don't know, you don't plan on things like that happening. It's just out of the blue. I think that got a lot of attention at the time. And I was quite young. I didn't really pay too much attention. I couldn't really care. As far as I was concerned, I was signed to Man City, and I was buzzing with that. But yeah, look, they named the rule after me. I embraced it, to be honest. It didn't really bother me. And like you said, it'll go down, long after I retire as a Caceres rule. So hopefully it sticks around.
You spent a few years in Melbourne before you come to Sydney, so you're probably one of the better placed athletes to actually answer this question. Which city has the better coffee, Sydney or Melbourne?
No, I think Sydney's. You Yeah, I think Sydney's caught up. I think, back in the day, maybe you could say Melbourne, but the coffee culture here is really good. There's a nice little place down the road called Mason. It's a local that we go to. I think Sydney's got that covered now, and, it kind of goes beyond Melbourne in all aspects at the moment. It's got the weather, the coffee, the beaches, so, yeah, we're sweet.
You mentioned earlier as well the number of competitions. You're in all 3 competitions. You've got the Australia Cup, the Macarthur are looking to defend the title. Did you get your campaign underway against the SD Raiders right here, actually? That's obviously the ground they've had to nominate for the Australia Cup, or they've wanted to nominate the SD Raiders as the home side. But you train here every day. Do you think that's going to give you an advantage in the game?
Yeah, you could say so. We're familiar with the ground. It's a good venue, to be fair. The pitch is actually good, well looked after. It should provide a good venue for an exciting fixture. But ultimately, you need to rock up on the day, execute the game plan, and like I said before, match the energy of a side that's going to be well up for it.
I mean, there's so many more things I could talk to you about, but I always like to end interviews with this question. Is there anything that you want to talk about that I haven't talked about?
Nothing on my mind at the moment. We've just walked off the training pitch, but I guess my feelings at the moment are, one of being grateful for the opportunity that I have to firstly play football in my home city, in our league, which is, in my opinion, a very good league. That people really need to get behind. We're obviously working at improving every day and providing good quality on and off the field. The only thing that's on my mind at the moment is to embrace the year ahead. It's going to be very exciting for us as a club and for the league. Like I said, to be part of the Asian Champions League is very special. We get to represent our league amongst Asia, and hopefully we put on a good enough performance to do the league proud. And so, at the moment, I guess my feelings are just one of excitement, enthusiasm and gratitude for just being a professional and being here at the Bulls.
Okay, I know I said that was the last question, but something in your answer triggered something else there. Obviously, it's been in the news the last week, Wrexham's tour, the whole idea of, drawing big crowds. You mentioned the A-League's improving all the time. It's our league that you want to get behind. And your old coach, Ufuk Talay, said something very similar last week after Sydney's game against Wrexham. You were part of one of these tours as, part of the A-League All-Stars when Barcelona came to town in 2022. So I guess as a player, what's your feeling about these sorts of tours, knowing that you get to play against some of the best players in the world when they come here, but also... we can't necessarily draw these crowds to games. So you've probably got a very unique perspective on it. Yeah,
I don't know the actual reason why, we can't replicate those sort of crowds throughout the season. We do it in the big fixtures like the Sydney Derby and things like that. But ultimately, I think, we need to realise that there's real quality in this league. As we've seen against, Wrexham recently, the young players coming through are producing. And in the past, we've shown that, like you said, against Barcelona and the All-Stars. And, you look at our national team and basically all the players have come through the A-League. And look what we've achieved. We've qualified directly for the World Cup, beating the strongest nations in Asia, being Japan and Saudi. And like I said, we've done that with players that have come through our league. So, it's an opportunity to come out and see players produce and grow and develop week to week. And obviously... identify yourself with the team in this country. The league is continuing to improve, like you said. It's got a lot to offer. I feel we really need to get behind football in this country to allow it to grow and thrive. Like Wolfie said the other day, there's massive potential. We've shown it with the players that have gone abroad and succeeded at leagues that are supposedly stronger than ours. I'm excited for what the A-League will continue to produce. We're going to attract quality foreigners from abroad as well as produce our own talent, and it's a great mix for people to come out and watch.
Anthony, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. You've got 3 competitions to try and win, finals to try and make, so good luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.